Hello, everyone. So it is currently 1:44 a.m. Can't sleep. So basically, I've been lying here trying to sleep for a little bit. I had fallen asleep earlier, and someone came in and woke me up. So here I am. I slept in my contacts. That took a little bit because I kept dropping them for some reason. No hand-eye coordination. So here we are, lying in bed, tired. So, I thought I would make another video. Honestly, this is becoming a very compulsive disorder, but it's all for the benefit of you guys. Tonight, this morning, I suppose, I thought I would discuss a topic that's kind of simple and kind of should be like a no doy kind of thing um, on a Warhammer channel. So I thought I would go over what is Warhammer. This is basically a video for either younger viewers or new viewers or people who have just never gone into the scene before. And basically, I'm just going to fill you in on a little bit, a tiny bit of history. It won't be overly detailed. Um, I'm not like a lore. I'm not like a lore guru, and I'm not. I'm not gonna be able to give you every single detail and a little bit of everything perfectly. So here's my best shot. So basically, Warhammer or Warhammer 40k is a modeling game created by a company called Games Workshop, and Games Workshop is technically a modeling company before they are a gaming company. So basically, what it is it's these models, and they are, and it's been changing recently, but I'm pretty sure, or at least the base sizes have. They're 25 millimeter models, and they are set in the 41st millennium. And basically, the story goes in the 30th millennium, 30k, the Emperor and his X amount of sons, I think it's 12, I want to say, the Emperor of Mankind came up as like this, I don't want to say wizard, but almost like godlike being. He was immortal and like kind of all-knowing. And the world had gone to crap. An apocalypse type thing had happened. He brought us back. And there was some like almost like middle-aged type of wars. And the Emperor used what little science and technology was left over to create genetically modified super soldiers to win the war, called the Unification Wars. So, he wins the war. Society goes on for X amount of years. I'm sorry, that was like a little bit before the 30th century, or 30th millennium. Jump forward to the 30th millennium. So all that stuff happened, Unification Wars, Emperor wins, brings up society, brings up the age of technology, things like that. And then, so here we are in the 30k universe. The Emperor decides that he wants to reunite mankind. So he sets out with his 12 sons, and his 12 sons are genetically modified, supposedly little bits and parts of the Emperor. Or at least that's what is referenced. They're either like sections of his personality or something along those lines. But they are living, breathing human beings. And basically, they go forth with their legions of genetically modified soldiers and they start to conquer the galaxy because humanity had spread out amongst the stars so many, you know, however long ago it had been. So they all go spread out throughout the stars. And the Emperor of Mankind wants to reunite everybody. So, yada yada, things go on. And the most prideful son, Horus, and the War Master is his name, is his actual official title, because he's such a beast at war. Finally, is out there. He's a good guy, doing his thing. He's doing exactly what his dad asked him, and he finds out. And just to let you guys know, there are some chaos gods. They're kind of like, almost like they are literally are the demon gods of this universe. And what they do is they infect a ship captain or a planetary governor who's taken over one of these planets that the Horus left him in charge of, and he pretty much like turned the planet to crap. It's Nurgle, and he's the god of pestilence and disease. He diseased the whole planet, killed the captain but took over his soul, so he's evil now. And so basically, Horus goes back to kick this guy's butt. This guy ends up wounding Horus with a magical sword, and that magical sword inflicts a mortal wound and disease that humans can't solve yet. No one can solve it. So Horus almost dies, but his sons take him to this wizarding temple. And in the 40k universe, religion is like totally banned. Religion and magic are totally banned, and science and thought, and like higher thought processes, whatever, are what is believed. Like you're not religious, and you don't yada yada. So you don't believe in magic. So the story goes, several of his sons are kind of divided, and they go, you know what, we're going to take him to this temple that we know of. And there's more details, a lot more details, but I'm not going to explain it all. So they take him to this temple, they put him in this stasis, almost like put him behind this big wall type thing, seal it up, and he comes back several days later. Sounds almost kind of close to something we know, us Christians. So he comes back, but his mind and attitude are changed while he's in there because another one of the Space Marines who has psychic abilities, and in the 40k universe, people have mutated and become psychers, so they can like telekinetically think, they can enter alternate dimensions, and all this is powered through something called the warp. And the warp is basically like, a second dimension within our dimension. So like you can go into the warp and come out of the warp like in a totally different part of, the universe or whatever. So it's kind of like the string theory. So it's like you can come in one side and go out the other. Telepathic thoughts fly through those, and that's where the demons live. So this guy goes into the warp, which is technically where Horus is at in a way. He's like in a spiritual warp type dealing-majigger. Convinces him that he needs to be the ruler of the universe, not the emperor, because he's out here busting his hump while the emperor's back home doing science projects on Earth. So Horus goes rogue, convinces a bunch of his brothers. They pretty much amass like all the Space Marines, the genetically modified, and they put them on a planet to take siege of it because it supposedly turned. And Horus then, with all of his brothers who are on his side and all of their Space Marines, use orbital bombardment and do an exterminus, which is a virus that they shoot down. It explodes. It goes all over the place and turns everything into this, like it literally breaks cells down immediately. And it's so like fast. You know how like food stinks? It does that, and it causes like a methane buildup in the weird noise in the it's the refrigerator. It causes a methane buildup in the atmosphere, and then they shoot like a explosive missile down on the on the ground, and it blows up and it vaporizes pretty much everything living on the planet. So a couple of Space Marines survive. They escape. Horus is like, "What the hail?" So he takes off. Eventually chases everybody back. You know, he has his own little plan. He betrays the rest of his other brothers. And there's some more story. I personally haven't read much more past most of the main betrayals after Estevan, and then the battle that takes place after that with like the Salamanders and Parturabo and stuff like that. Those are all main characters. You guys learn about them later. So anyways, what ends up happening is eventually Horus gets back to Earth, and he starts assaulting the castle that's built into the Appalachian Mountains or Mount Everest. It's one of the two, is where it technically would have been. In the 41st millennium, the Emperor and some of his sons that are loyal to him eventually teleport to Horus' ship, and spoiler alert, hello, just a heads up, there is a spoiler coming up. If you don't want to hear it, skip ahead about 30 seconds, and then I'll kind of let you guys know. So like at 12 minutes and 20 seconds or something. So what happens is they get there. Horus, one of his sons, fights Horus. Horus kills him, and the Emperor's like super mad. So the Emperor goes ahead and slays Horus, and he dies. So then the Emperor is mortally wounded during this battle, and he goes back to Earth and is hooked into this chair called the Golden Throne. And basically, trying to get to 20 seconds, sorry. Okay, and we're back for those of you who skipped. Basically what happens is the Emperor goes back to Earth, mortally wounded, gets hooked up to this Golden Throne. His spirit is forever technically within the warp, and he becomes a god per se. That's what some say. He is technically the, I think it's 5th Chaos God. Even though he's a good guy. So, his body's forever linked to this chair to keep him alive. His spirit lives on and kind of helps provide as a beacon for Psychers, because they use Psychers to find their way back to Earth. So he's kind of like a beacon, and yada yada yada. So, jump forward 10,000 years or whatever it is. We're in the 41st millennium, and basically that's where we're at now. It's just a constant war between the original loyalists who were loyal to the Emperor, and they are trying to exterminate and bring the order back to the galaxy, whereas the original traitors had all, after Horus died, flew off into a section of space called the Eye of Terra. The Eye of Terra is kind of like it's like the Twilight Zone in a weird way. It has like all of its own physics and its own rules, and like dark magic and stuff like that festers there, and like demons have more, a little like portability, like they can come out a little bit more through that area and stuff like that. So there's, like I said, you missed, I mean, that was like basically me reading what I just explained to you in 15 minutes would be me reading the back, like little blips that are on the back of the books, like the little reviews or the previews or whatever you want to call it. Like that would be me like reading like half of the little books and like the last 2 or something like that. There's a crud ton. I mean, it is probably one of the most extensive stories, I mean, ever. I think there are like something like 13 or between 13 and like 16 Horus Heresy books. That is the book series for the whole story for Horus and his betrayal of his father. So, that's the background. So, that way now you kind of know a little bit more. But what is Warhammer 40k exactly? So, like I said, modeling company before it's gaming company. So, Games Workshop sells models of these different races, and there are, I want to say, 7, maybe 8 now. So there's the Space Marines, which are the genetically modified soldiers. Those are the ones that most people go after first. There's the Imperium, a man, or they're called Astra Militarum now. They're kind of like the general fighting force. Like the Space Marines are like your super soldiers. Like they're very far and few in between. There's only like maybe tops between all the legions, like a couple million, maybe a couple 100 million tops. So if you think about that and you spread them out throughout the whole galaxy, there's not that many. So the Imperium Man is the main fighting force. They're going to be like basic human soldiers and tanks. And then, let's see. And then you're going to have the Eldar, which are kind of like your space elves. They're magical. They're kind of searching for a new homeworld because theirs got wiped out. Kind of weird. Then you have your Dark Eldar, which are your really creepy, like, sadist bondage, S&M, like, cut and, like, enjoy pain for, like, pleasure kind of weirdos. They are also elves, but they are Eldar gone rogue, obviously, and they kind of have to fight to keep their soul, because otherwise it'll get sucked into the warp. So I think that's like kind of why they do their whole S&M weird thing. Then there's orcs, and in this one, orcs are made out of fungus. They are mushroom people, technically. So don't let that discourage you. They're actually pretty beastly. And you have Tau, which are a breed of like fish people that are working for a greater good, and basically they have the same idea as the humans to unite the whole universe without any war. But you have to bow down to the Tau, technically. So it's kind of like they're working for the better of everyone, but they still want to hold that power. So, whatever. Tau are good guys, though, for the most part. Then you have your Necrons, which are basically your 1980s Terminator in the future. There were a race of people back before, like, the beginning of time, like, whenever the universe had started or whatever, that basically gave up their souls. Like, they were enslaved by a higher power, and they gave up their souls to another higher power to receive immortal bodies. And they went and fought and killed all their slave masters, quote unquote, whatever. And then they defeated the entire universe and, like, ruled everything. And then they're like, alright, this is boring, so they went to sleep. And now they are waking up again in the 41st millennium. So basically it's like Terminator then. Let's see, you have your Tyranids, which are literally your parasitic life form. They are a ever-morphing and changing alien life form. They kind of look like dinosaurs, but supposedly they're supposed to be an arachnid type subspecies or so, or something like that. They came from like a whole different, so like we have like our universe, and they came from like a whole nother universe, which was like a total mind, that's just throwing me for a loop. So anyways, they came from somewhere way the hell else out there, and nobody knows. But as far as we know, they evolved enough that they could travel that distance and not die of starvation, freezing, whatever. So, but they just literally go like planet to planet, eating literally everything off the surface of the planet. Like, I mean, they're like licking the rocks before they finish up, and then they leave. And there's just dirt and stone left. Like, even the bacteria get eaten up. Even like all the microorganisms and all the water, all the plants, fish, air, everything gets totally wiped out. So it's literally just a rock left over whenever they're done. They're pretty freaking awesome. Who am I missing? There's the Adeptus Mechanicus Sakari, however you pronounce it. I apologize if everybody pronounces it kind of differently. They are the human version of... I don't know what to compare them to. Gosh. They are literally a cult dedicated to the recovery of old technology of before, like during the Unification Wars and the Dark Age of technology. So, like, they're kind of like archaeologists that are digging up technology that's just as good or better than what they have now from old days, if that makes sense. Because technology used to be really good during, like, so it was like Stone Age, super, super high technology, Unification Wars, which went back downhill, and then the Emperor raised the technology age back up, and that's when he started taking back over the universe. That makes sense. So they're looking for the technology that was at like right before the Unification Wars, where everybody was like super smart, and like pretty much humans were getting to the point of being like almost like immortal, like, you know, whatever. Um, so they are always looking for these things. It's like a CDI or something like that, but it's this information like blueprints. Basically what happens is, instead of like you having a blueprint and then, this is way too much information for you guys, your minds are probably going to explode. So this, instead of having a blueprint and building something, it was everything, like it's a one set of machines. It's basically like finding an assembly line. You find this assembly line and it knows how to build one thing, and that's what they would find. And basically, like, they're looking for these blueprints to build the assembly line that will build what they want. Cool. They are really cool. They are a very brand new army codex. So we'll go over that in a minute. Boy, I'm like really digging deep here. Let's say we did Space Marines, humans, orcs, Tau, Eldar, Dark Eldar, Necrons, and Sakiri. I think that's all the races. If I missed one, I'm sorry. It is, kind of 2 in the morning. So, basically, now that you have all those, each army has their own codex, which is like their own story, which is called fluff. So every army has their own fluff. There's a rule book that has a crud load of fluff. And so anyways, Games Workshop produces these models, 25 millimeter. You paint them up. You put them on a table. Every army has special things. They have a head and HQ, which is their commander. Then they have troop choices, fast attack, heavy support, and elites. Each army has a wide variety of range of models, things like that, and they all accomplish certain tasks on a battlefield. You go ahead, you buy an HQ and at least 2 troop choices, and that's your very first start to your army. You basically need to go buy a codex, the HQ, and 2 troop choices. Buy the codex first, because you're going to want to look at the stats, read the fluff of, everybody, and then you'll be able to kind of choose your army or who you want to play, yada yada. So, oh goodness. Basically, once you have all that, then starts the game. So basically, we've covered a lot. So basically, it's a game. It goes 7 turns. There are lots of game variants. There's like a capture the flag type variant. There's a annihilate the enemy variant. There are new things called tactical objectives. There are new sets of cards that the company has put out to make more money, obviously, and they're basically used to just give you different ways of playing. Like, you can get points for killing your enemy's commander. You can get points for holding more objective points than than your enemy. You can, if you wipe out a whole squad with melee, then you get to, then that gets you a point. So that's kind of how the game's played a little bit. The game is basically set up in a series of phases. So you go through all your phases, the opponent goes through all his phases, and then it's the next turn. So the phases go movement phase, psychic phase, which is like the telepathy thing. There are models that have psychic abilities, so they can like do like a mental blast and blow up the enemy, things like that. They can discourage the enemy, things along those lines. So it's things that help you win the game. So there's movement, psychic phase, there's shooting phase, there's the assault phase, which is like melee, and then that's your turn. So it's a pretty neat game. So basically, you go in, you set up with another person, you go through, you write up your armies. Armies are determined by points. Every model has a certain amount of points, and then typically most armies, the Necron's a little bit lacking on this, but it's because they're kind of supposed to be perfect as they are, um, in the fluff wise at least. Um, and basically, once you both agree on a point value, you work the amount of models that you can afford to put on the battlefield within that point value. So, like, let's say you have a Space Marine commander. That's 85 points, and you want to give him a power sword and a plasma pistol. That's going to be another 25 points, another 15 points, or something like that. So you're looking at 120, 125 points for that model or something, or whatever. And then you have 125 points out of like 1,000. So, um, some armies are. Oh my goodness! I totally forgot one. Goodness gracious! There is two. I actually forgot two armies. I am an idiot. I am so sorry, guys. They are Chaos Space Marines, which are like the evil side of Space Marines. So like, they all have like horns and spikes, and they believe in the demon gods and stuff like that. And then there are the actual demons themselves, and you can have each specific like not each specific god, but kind of like their second in command. So like you can have like their second in command, and then all their little minion demons that come with them. I am so sorry, guys. Goodness gracious, it just must be how late it is. Um, oh gosh, I don't remember where I was. I don't even remember what I was saying. Dang it. Anyways, that's kind of an idea of how the game is played and whatnot. Um, so what else can I tell you? Um, it's not a. So like kind of the background. The armies now. A little bit about how to play. Um, like I said, it's a modeling company before it's a gaming company, so you will have to paint, trim, spend hours working on these models. You can. Some people just assemble the models and play as is. Some people do like a basic base coat and just spray it with spray paint and just do a general, you know, they're colored, whatever, it doesn't matter. Some people spend hours, weeks and months and years painting their armies. I'm personally not one of those people. I will spend a good probably 3 to 5 minutes per model. From like, you know, what I'll do is I'll base coat all of them at once, and then I'll paint the pants, paint the shirt, paint all the little details, paint the skin, and paint their gun, and then I'm done. So honestly, it took me like 3 months to paint my whole Space Marines army. So it's not bad, and that's intermittently working on it a couple hours a weekend or something like that. Like, it's really not that bad. Now, if you're playing like demons or orcs or Tyranids, that's a horde army. It will take you a very long time. It took me about 6 months to paint my Tyranids army, because I have about 40 Hormigons alone. Back to what I was saying a little bit ago. It is not a cheap game by any means. You can buy a lot of your stuff on eBay, and that will help. But if you buy it brand new, it is not cheap. Um, typically models are roughly sold about $4 a model, like per like little guy that's like this big. From Games Workshop, like I think it, or sorry, rough. It's maybe more closer to $3 a model, but a 10-man squad of Space Marines, a tactical squad, is going to run you about $25 to $30 depending on where you buy it, if it's new. So the game gets very expensive very quickly. The pots of paint, depending on where you buy them, are between $3 and $6 a piece. So if you need 10 different pots of paint to paint all the details on one army, that's $30 right there. The Citadel brushes, which is kind of like the leading recommended Games Workshop brushes for it, they're about $15 a piece. Or you can go to Walmart like me and buy a $3 pack of paintbrushes that'll work just fine. You will need super glue, or if you want your models to actually stay together, you will buy plastic glue, or however you say it, plastic melt glue, and basically it's plastic. It's super glue with a small amount of acid in it. So whenever it gets on the model, it makes some of that plastic liquidy, and then it all kind of comes together. And then whenever that super glue hardens, some of that plastic's all like wrap around each other and like this, and so it's harder for it to break instead of it just being just like a flat surface glue. It's as if you would like intertwined wire in between each piece. So yeah, so I talked about all that. There are nationwide tournaments. It is a worldwide game. The Games Workshop is based out of Europe, so it is easier if you live over there to find access to the game, probably to buy the game, things along those lines. Here in America, they shut down. They used to have a boatload of stores, like all over the place, and they shut pretty much all of them down. So you pretty much, like, you're going to find them in the main cities, obviously, where they were still making a ton of cash. They have an online store now that does just as well. So basically, so you're going to have to find like your independent shops and stuff like that. These are going to be your shops that sell like D&D, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon cards, comic book related. So anything that's kind of nerdy, geeky shop, go there, ask around. They might know. I can guarantee you'll find somebody that knows a little bit about or plays Warhammer. A lot of people usually know Warhammer from a video game series called Dawn of War. Most people don't know that there's a tabletop game involved with it too. Most people just think it's Dawn of War. It is actually the tabletop game first. It actually started in the very late 80s, early 90s-ish. And yeah, and it's just been hustling ever since. They're becoming more digital, obviously, because that is more profitable. More people will play that. Their game Eternal Crusade is kind of like a Call of Duty on steroids. I personally think it's better, but that's just because it's related to Warhammer. Gosh, I'm starving right now. I don't need to eat anything because we killed some Chinese buffet earlier. But they have the Dawn of War series. Eternal Crusade just came out. Games Workshop also, and I don't know hardly even a quarter of the information that I know about Warhammer 40k. They own a fantasy line that is literally pretty much the same game. It has changed a lot. It is called Warhammer Age of Sigmar now. It used to be Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition, Warhammer Fantasy, whatever edition they were in. But it is now called Age of Sigmar. They recently did a revamp on it, and basically they did a revamp because they're trying to make it cheaper and more accessible to get into. Because instead of saying, instead of being like going to your friend like, hey, you want to play this game Warhammer with me? They're like, yeah, absolutely. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you only need like roughly like 3 to 6 months of your life. You'll probably need about 2 or 3, at least a month, to learn the game. The 3 to 6 months is to paint your army, and then you're going to need roughly about $300 to $500 to get started, basically. And then, honestly, within the next year to like next 5 years, you're going to spend roughly about $1,000 on the game, buying different army pieces, to add to your army, paint, glue, depending on if you get into building scenery, things like that. It does get very expensive very quickly. That is just a word to the wise. So, anyways, Age of Sigmar, now, instead of having to buy the rulebook, the codexes, all the super crazy things that you had to buy before, now all you have to do is you can literally buy one box of guys and play the game. It is now, instead of being like a 200 to 300 page rulebook, it is now a 4-page rulebook. And they allow you to basically make up your own rules and come to a compromise with your opponent before you play the game, so that you can make the game, basically you can build the game to make it enjoyable for yourself. It was a move that was super intelligent by Games Workshop, but it has pretty much been shot down and beaten to death by the Warhammer Society, because it wasn't handed to them on a silver platter, basically. So there's a lot of hate for the fantasy side of Warhammer right now, which kind of breaks my heart, because it's definitely a good, like, if you need to take a break from Warhammer, that 40K, the futuristic one, that's a nice change of pace. It's obviously like knights and goblins and elves and stuff like that, so it's pretty cool. Goodness gracious. Age of Sigmar, you don't have to buy the rule book. It's free. You don't have to buy the codex. They're called War Scrolls. It is also free. So basically, you can get all the army information and stuff for free. All you have to do is pretty much buy the paint, the models, which for a decently small army. So like for like a hero and like 2 sets of troops, talking $100, you're gonna spend about $20-$30 on paint and paintbrushes and glue, and you're done. So for like $130, you're in and ready to go. So they've made it way more accessible. Yes, you have to make up your own rules. Yes, you have to work with the game a little bit more, but they made it where it's available to everyone. So it is now 2:22 in the morning. I am tired as balls. Originally woke up at like 12:40, and here I am. And I think my fat boy self is gonna go find a glass of milk, maybe a big honking glass of water or something, so I can go to bed. Anyways, guys, I hope that kind of opened your eyes. I know it was a ton of information. For those of you veterans who are watching this, I sincerely apologize if I got anything wrong, the names of things or something like that. For the most part, I should have been mostly 99.9% right on all the events and what happened and stuff like that. And I hope that it gave you kind of an overview and maybe a little bit more of an interest in the game. So, yeah. Anyways, you guys get some sleep. I'll see you later. Tomorrow. Hey, it's Easter. Hey, happy Easter. So happy Easter. You get to you guys, and be safe out there. Have a good time. And yeah. You guys have a nice time. See you soon.